You are not distracted because the world is loud. You are distracted because too much of the world still has access to your mind. Your phone reaches you before your purpose. Your inbox reaches you before your standards. Old disrespect returns before your mission can form a clear sentence. And beneath all of it sits the private humiliation. You are not losing because you lack potential. You are losing because your attention has no border, no gate, no guard. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained inside a system that profits from reachable men, reactive men, emotionally exposed men, men who can be interrupted, redirected, softened, and sold back their own discipline in monthly payments. A manageable man is easier to market to, easier to provoke, easier to predict. So no, your weakness did not appear from nowhere. It was installed. But that absolution ends here. What was programmed into you may not be your fault. What remains inside you after today is your responsibility. Machiavelli watched courts collapse not because rulers lacked strength, but because the wrong voices were allowed too close to the throne. No ruler survives without controlling access. Your mind is no different. And if you do not close the gate, something else will keep ruling from inside it. Most men try to fix focus by adding more effort. Another planner, another morning routine, another motivational video, another promise made at midnight after another wasted day. And for a few hours, it works. They feel sharp, serious, reborn. Then the old pattern returns. The phone comes back. The inbox comes back. The impulse comes back. The old insecurity comes back. One message, one memory, one small interruption, and the entire structure folds, quietly, privately. A man can speak with ambition in public and still live like a servant to interruption in private. Here is where the mechanism becomes clear. Your problem is not that you lack effort. Your problem is that your life is architected against focus. You were not raised inside a culture that protects attention. You were raised inside machinery designed to harvest it. Every platform wants access. Every app wants entry. Every brand wants a reaction. Every feed is engineered to make your mind available before your mission can take command. So no, the first version of this weakness was not entirely your fault. It was trained into you, installed into your nervous system, reinforced by convenience, rewarded by little bursts of stimulation until distraction felt normal. But once you see the mechanism, staying available becomes a choice. That is the cut. Focus is not effort. Focus is exclusion. It is the sovereign decision that certain people, certain pleasures, certain memories, certain emotions, and certain devices do not get access to the command room. Not today, not first, not without permission. Think of your mind as a kingdom. Attention is the throne. Desire is the army. Habits are the supply lines. Environment is the fortress. The people around you are either assets, liabilities, or invaders. A weak man lets everything enter the court. He lets every notification speak. He lets every disrespectful person occupy his head. He lets every urge vote on his future. Then he wonders why he has no control. That is not a focus problem. That is a governance problem. Machiavelli understood this better than most modern men ever will. A ruler who allows every voice into the court does not remain sovereign for long. First, he loses silence. Then, he loses judgment. Then his decisions no longer belong to him. History proves the rule. Roman commanders did not build power only through courage. They built it through controlled camps, guarded roads, disciplined supply lines, and strict access to command. The army that could not control its own structure became vulnerable before the real contest even began. Your mind works the same way. If your phone gets first access in the morning, your day has already been colonized. If someone who disrespected you can still control your emotional state hours later, they still have territory inside you. If your environment makes distraction easier than execution, your surroundings are not neutral. They are working against you. There is no neutral ground. Every object around you either increases friction or reduces it. Every person around you either sharpens your standard or dulls it. Every habit either protects your architecture or weakens it. Every unchecked desire either serves your mission or taxes it. The cost is not just lost time. The cost is lost authority over yourself. And once a man loses authority over himself, people can feel it. He becomes easier to interrupt, easier to provoke, easier to redirect. He starts needing perfect conditions before he can produce. He starts negotiating with impulses that should have no seat at the table. This is how a man with potential becomes manageable. Not through one dramatic collapse, through small permissions. Permission for the phone to enter first. Permission for comfort to decide. Permission for old disrespect to replay. Permission for low-standard people to occupy mental space they never earned. The correction is not romantic. It is structural. You need an access audit. Audit the digital gate. What touches your attention before your mission does? If the first thing you see each morning is a screen designed by people paid to capture you, do not pretend your mind is free. Audit the emotional gate. Who can change your state without your permission? Who gets to disturb your peace with one message, one tone, one look, one memory? Audit the environmental gate. Does your room, desk, schedule, and routine make execution easier than escape? Or are you trying to build discipline inside a structure designed for surrender? Audit the desire gate. Which pleasure can override your standards fastest? Food, scrolling, lust, attention, approval, entertainment. Identify it without drama. Then remove its voting power. This is the blueprint. Do not ask for more discipline while every gate is open. Close the gate first, then discipline finally has something to protect. A focused man is not the man who feels motivated every day. That man is fragile. He depends on mood. The focused man is the man who has removed enough access that his mission can speak without being interrupted. That is sovereign exclusion. Not more noise, not more intensity, not another public promise. A closed gate, a clean command room, a mind that no longer belongs to everything trying to enter it. But there is one gate most men protect the least, because it flatters them while it drains them. The gate of validation. There is a quiet addiction most men will never admit. Not because they are evil, not because they are hopeless, because the addiction has been disguised as confidence. They do not only want to become stronger, they want someone to see them becoming stronger. They do not only want to build, they want the update noticed, the post approved, the story watched, the old circle alerted that something is changing. And that is where the leak begins. A man says he is locked in, but he still checks who noticed. He says he is done seeking approval, but one ignored message can disturb his entire state. He says he is building a new life, but he keeps dragging witnesses from the old one into the room. That is not sovereignty. That is dependency with better lighting. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained in a marketplace where visibility is treated like existence. If no one sees it, it does not feel real. If no one reacts, it feels like failure. If no one confirms the new version of you, the old version starts whispering that nothing has changed. That system is not accidental. It profits from men who cannot sit alone with unfinished work. It profits from men who need a witness before they can trust their own standard. It profits from men who confuse attention with progress and applause with authority. But here is the line. Once you understand that mechanism, continuing to perform your transformation is no longer innocence. It is self-sabotage in high definition. The validation trap works because it pays you early, before the body changes, before the money compounds, before the skill becomes undeniable, before the discipline hardens into identity. You announce the mission, and people respond. They praise the intention. They admire the energy. They say they are proud of you. And for a moment, your nervous system receives the reward of accomplishment without the burden of completion. That is the trap. The image gets rewarded, and the work loses pressure. This is why many men talk like winners and execute like men who already collected the prize. They announce the plan, explain the comeback, narrate the process, show the first step, and then wonder why the internal fire begins fading after the audience has already applauded the idea. Machiavelli understood concealment as structural leverage. In The Prince, he praised the ruler who could operate like the fox, not merely the lion, because the fox survives by recognizing traps before walking into them. Sun Tzu put the same law in colder language. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night. The principle is simple. A move revealed too early becomes easier to block, mock, copy, weaken, or pull into debate. The prince who announces every intention teaches the court how to interfere with him. Your life follows the same physics. If everyone knows what you are building before the foundation is strong, they can infect it with opinion. They can question the timing. They can laugh at the first failure. They can call your ambition unrealistic. They can invite you back into the identity they understand. And because part of you still wants their approval, you begin adjusting the mission to protect the audience. That is the invisible cage. The audience becomes the master, and the mission becomes a performance. A sovereign man does not need the old room to clap for his new architecture. He does not explain the blueprint to people who have no role in building it. He does not expose unfinished structure to those who only know how to inspect, doubt, and reduce. He builds until the result speaks in a language no one can interrupt. This does not mean you hide because you are afraid. Fear hides. Strategy conceals. Different mechanism. Fear says, I hope they do not judge me. Strategy says, they have not earned access to this stage of construction. The correction is simple, but it bruises the ego. Stop announcing unfinished standards. Stop explaining your next phase to people who benefited from your previous weakness. Stop asking for emotional permission from people who only feel safe when you remain recognizable. Let the work mature in silence. Keep the blueprint private. Keep the early repetitions private. Keep the ugly drafts private. Keep the weak beginning private. Not because they are shameful, because early structure needs protection before exposure. A man who needs witnesses gives his power to the room. If they praise him, he moves. If they ignore him, he doubts. If they question him, he explains. If they laugh, he retreats. That is not focus. That is remote control. Your mission cannot be governed by public reaction. It has to be governed by private law. Build first. Speak later. Or do not speak at all. Let the first announcement be evidence. Let the first explanation be results. Let the first public statement be a life so structurally different that nobody can argue with what happened. But even silence will not protect you if one insult, one message, or one tone can still seize the command room. One of the most expensive distractions in a man's life does not look like entertainment. It does not look like scrolling. It does not look like laziness. It looks like a reaction, a disrespectful tone, a cold message, a delayed reply, a look from someone who used to make you feel small, a comment that lands exactly where your insecurity is still exposed, and suddenly, your mission is no longer in command. Your body tightens. Your mind starts building arguments. You begin preparing a response to someone who should not even have access to the command room. Hours disappear. Energy disappears. Clarity disappears. From the outside, nothing dramatic happened, but inside, the structure was breached. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained in a world that rewards reaction, fast replies, public opinions, instant outrage, emotional availability. The system teaches men to confuse quick response with strength and visible emotion with honesty. It makes restraint look weak and reactivity look passionate. Useful programming for everyone except you. A reactive man is easier to provoke, easier to predict, easier to redirect, easier to manage. If someone can change your state with one sentence, they do not need authority over your life. They only need access to your nervous system. But once you see that mechanism, the responsibility returns to you, because every reaction tells the room where the control panel is. This is why dangerous focus is not only about avoiding digital distraction. It is about refusing emotional capture. A man can turn his phone off and still spend 3 hours mentally arguing with someone who is not in the room. He can sit at a clean desk and still be occupied by one insult from last week. He can call himself disciplined while letting a woman's tone, A coworker's disrespect or a stranger's opinion govern the weather inside his skull. That is not focus. That is exposure. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who responds too quickly teaches the court how to move him. The moment people see what provokes the prince, every ambitious mind begins studying the lever. Epictetus gave the same law a colder form. Men are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about events. The insult enters. Your judgment gives it weight. The delay happens. Your insecurity gives it meaning. The disrespect appears. Your ego turns it into a courtroom where you spend the next 6 hours defending your worth. Most men are not exhausted from work. They are exhausted from internal litigation. They prosecute imaginary cases all day. They replay conversations. They prepare speeches no one will hear. They prove themselves to people who are not listening. They carry arguments into the gym, into the car, into bed, into the next morning. Then they say they cannot focus. Of course they cannot. Their command room is full of unauthorized voices. The correction is not to become numb. Numb men are not powerful. They are merely disconnected. The correction is to become governed. Emotion is data, not command. Anger may show you where a boundary was crossed. Fear may show you where preparation is missing. Jealousy may show you where desire is undisciplined. Shame may show you where your standards and behavior are not aligned. But none of these emotions gets the throne. Not anger, not fear, not ego, not desire. You need a 3-second command protocol. First, pause the body. Do not reply immediately. Do not defend immediately. Do not let your face announce what your strategy has not approved. Second, name the mechanism. This is bait. This is ego. This is fear. This is old insecurity asking for the microphone again. Third, choose the outcome, not the feeling, the outcome. What response protects leverage? What silence preserves authority? What delay gives you more information? What answer moves the board instead of feeding the noise? That wall between stimulus and response is where power begins. Without that wall, you are available to every provocation. With that wall, you become difficult to read, difficult to steer, and difficult to reduce. A focused man does not need to win every emotional moment. He needs to remain in command of the larger structure. That is the difference between a man with reactions and a man with authority. This is the declaration point. Drop a comment right now and type the words. Nothing enters my mind without permission, not as performance, as private law. Because until that sentence becomes real inside you, you will keep calling yourself focused while every small provocation walks through the front gate. And once reaction loses access, the next enemy arrives softer, quieter, and far more seductive: comfort. Comfort rarely arrives looking like an enemy. That is why most men never defend against it. It arrives as relief. One more episode, one more scroll, one more snack, one more night of delay, one more small compromise after a hard day. And because it feels harmless, you let it in, quietly, repeatedly, voluntarily. That is the danger. The obvious problems in your life are easy to identify. The debt, the weak habit, the soft body, the unfinished work, the job that drains you, the relationship that keeps shrinking your standards. But comfort is more subtle. It does not confront you directly. It lowers the temperature of your ambition until your future no longer feels urgent. Then it calls that peace. You tell yourself you are resting. Sometimes you are, but often you are escaping. Different mechanism. Rest restores the man for the mission. Escape protects the weaker version from being confronted. That line matters, because many men are not tired from doing too much. They are tired from avoiding what they know they should be doing. They are exhausted by delay, by guilt, by the silent weight of private promises they keep breaking. Then they use comfort to recover from the stress created by avoiding the mission. A perfect loop. Soft, clean, expensive. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained inside a system that made comfort immediate and discipline expensive. Pleasure is one tap away. Food arrives without movement. Entertainment never ends. Attention is available on demand. Every platform is designed to reduce friction between you and escape. Then, the same system tells you to be more disciplined, convenient. It places temptation in your hand, your pocket, your bedroom, your workplace, your car, and your bed. Then it acts surprised when your focus becomes weak. So no, the first version of this softness was not born inside you. It was engineered around you. But this is where the absolution expires. Once you understand the architecture, continuing to obey comfort is no longer programming. It is permission. Machiavelli understood that men are often governed less by pressure than by appetite. Give a man enough pleasure without discipline, and he will begin to negotiate away his own authority. Rome understood this too. Its strongest citizens were not feared because they were comfortable. They were respected because comfort had not purchased their will. Luxury has always been a political force. It softens command before anyone notices. That is the mechanism. Comfort does not need to remove your ambition. It only needs to delay it until your ambition becomes less believable to you. Every time you choose the easy escape over the necessary action, you teach yourself one private lesson. My standards are negotiable. At first, it feels small. Then it becomes normal. Then it becomes identity. This is how a man becomes soft without noticing, not through one dramatic collapse, through repeated permission. Permission to sleep past the hour he promised himself. Permission to scroll when the work becomes uncomfortable. Permission to eat like his body does not matter. Permission to spend like the future will somehow forgive him. Permission to seek stimulation every time silence starts revealing the truth. The real cost of comfort is not time. It is self-trust. When you keep breaking private agreements, you stop believing your own commands. You can still speak with intensity. You can still say you are serious. You can still consume strategy, quote philosophers, and talk about becoming dangerous. But internally, your word has lost value. And a man whose word has no value inside himself cannot build structural leverage outside himself. Here is the correction. Reverse the friction. Most men make discipline difficult and distraction easy. The focused man reverses the physics. He makes the mission easier to enter and escape harder to reach, not because he is morally superior, because he is strategic. If your phone ruins your morning, it does not sleep beside you. If social media drains your command hours, it does not remain one tap away. If your environment invites laziness, the environment gets redesigned. If pleasure keeps taking the throne before production, pleasure moves to the back of the line. You do not defeat comfort by arguing with it every day. That is amateur behavior. You redesign the terrain so comfort has fewer routes into your command room. Make the first hour clean. No feed, no inbox, no emotional noise, no outside access before internal command. Make the mission visible. Put the notebook open. Put the task in front of you. Put the body in the chair before the mind starts negotiating. Make escape inconvenient. Add friction. Remove shortcuts. Close loops. Block access. Force your weaker impulses to work harder to reach you. This is not about becoming extreme. It is about becoming structurally honest. A man who relies on willpower while living inside an architecture of surrender is not disciplined. He is gambling, and eventually the house wins. So build a house where your mission has the advantage. Comfort can remain in your life, but it cannot remain in command. Rest can serve the mission, but escape cannot govern the man. Pleasure can exist, but it does not get voting power over your future. The focused man does not ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" He asks, "What did I already decide before comfort started speaking?" That question recalibrates the entire system. Because the man who only works when it feels good is not focused. He is rented by mood. But the man who acts according to structure, even when comfort whispers for delay, becomes difficult to soften. And difficult to soften is the beginning of becoming difficult to control. But even if you master comfort, there is another architecture shaping you every day. The people around you. Your circle is not just company. It is programming. Most men resist this truth because it feels disloyal. They want to believe they can spend years around low standards and remain untouched. They want to believe they can absorb complaints, excuses, cheap humor, weak ambition, emotional chaos, and small thinking without being shaped by it. They tell themselves, "I know who I am." Maybe. But repetition is stronger than self-image. Sit long enough in a room where nobody builds, and building starts to feel excessive. Stay long enough around people who mock discipline, and your discipline starts needing an explanation. Keep giving access to people who live beneath your standard, and sooner or later, your higher standard begins to feel like betrayal. Not betrayal of them. Betrayal of the version of you they are comfortable recognizing. This is the part most men do not want to admit. Some people do not want you powerless. They want you familiar. They do not need you ruined. They only need you reachable at the same level, speaking the same language, laughing at the same limitations, carrying the same invisible ceiling. And because they call it loyalty, you hesitate. You tolerate comments that shrink your ambition. You laugh at jokes that disrespect the man you are trying to become. You stay available for conversations that drain your mental space. You let old friends audit your new standards as if comfort gives them authority. That is the private trap. You are not only seeking approval from strangers. Sometimes the deepest validation trap is wanting the old room to bless your new architecture. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained to confuse proximity with loyalty. You were told that history equals trust, that old access means permanent access, that choosing distance makes you arrogant, cold, or changed in the wrong way. The system around you benefits from men who cannot separate love from access. A manageable man keeps everyone close, even those who weaken him. He keeps explaining. He keeps proving he has not changed too much. He keeps lowering the temperature of his ambition so the room does not feel exposed by his growth. So no, the first version of this guilt was installed before you had the language to question it. But once you see the mechanism, continuing to let low standards shape your environment is no longer loyalty. It is negligence. Machiavelli warned rulers to choose counsel with ruthless care, because bad counsel does not only create bad decisions, it alters the ruler's perception of reality. In Rome, emperors rarely fell from one bad choice alone. They fell after years of flatterers, weak advisors, comfortable voices, and corrupted rooms turning distortion into normal judgment. Bad company does not always oppose you. Sometimes it simply edits your standards until decline feels reasonable. Your circle works the same way. People do not merely influence what you do. They influence what feels normal, what feels possible, what feels excessive, what feels embarrassing, what feels worth pursuing. That is the hidden mechanism. Your environment colonizes your standards slowly, not loudly, not all at once. It happens through tone, repetition, humor, stories, complaints, and approval. It happens when mediocrity becomes socially comfortable, and excellence starts feeling socially expensive. And a man who must constantly defend his ambition before he can act has already lost enormous energy. This does not mean every person around you is malicious. That is a childish interpretation. Some people are not trying to limit you. They are simply loyal to the version of you that made them feel safe. Your growth creates a mirror, and not everyone wants to look into it. When you raise your standards, you reveal that higher standards were possible. When you become more disciplined, you expose the excuses they still protect. When you stop participating in old patterns, the room feels judged even if you said nothing. So they pull, quietly, casually, sometimes with jokes, sometimes with concern, sometimes with the language of keeping you grounded. But the result is the same. They are protecting the shared ceiling. The correction is not emotional, it is architectural. You need a circle classification system. Builders increase your standard. After speaking with them, your mind becomes cleaner, your vision becomes sharper, and your excuses become harder to respect. Witnesses can observe your life without interfering. They do not build with you, but they do not drain the structure either. Consumers take time, attention, reassurance, and emotional energy while returning little clarity. They are not always bad people. They are expensive access points. Saboteurs punish growth. They mock discipline, reward regression, question every higher standard, and make your old identity feel safer than your future. The focused man does not give inner circle access to outer court people. He can have respect without availability, history without intimacy, kindness without permission, distance without hatred. That is maturity, and it will cost you. Some people will call your boundaries pride because your former availability benefited them. Some will say you changed because the old version was easier to use. Some will frame your distance as disrespect because they are accustomed to entering without knocking. Let them misread it. Your mission cannot be negotiated by people who are not paying the price for your potential. 5 relationships that elevate you are worth more than 50 relationships that keep you socially comfortable and internally diluted. Your circle is not just where you spend time. It is what your future is being trained to accept. Audit it with clear eyes. Reduce access where the standard is low. Protect proximity where the standard is high. And stop asking people beneath your architecture to approve the height of what you are building. But once the circle is clean, one danger remains, showing the structure before it is strong enough to stand. There comes a point in every serious man's life where he has to make a choice the average room will misread. He has to become less visible, not weaker, not absent, not irresponsible, less visible. Because too much visibility in the early stage turns construction into entertainment. It invites opinions before the foundation is stable. It gives old identities a chance to pull on the new one before it has enough structure to stand alone. Most men cannot do this. They are too addicted to being seen while they are becoming. They want the gym session noticed, the late night work noticed, the new mindset noticed, the quiet comeback noticed, by exactly the person who once underestimated them. Human, understandable. Still a leak. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained inside a system where privacy feels like disappearance. If you are not posting, you feel irrelevant. If you are not updating, you feel behind. If nobody sees your effort, some part of you starts wondering whether the effort counts. That is the validation trap with better technology. The system taught you to confuse documentation with discipline. It taught you to turn progress into content before progress became structure. It trained you to seek the reward of being perceived before you earned the authority of becoming undeniable. So no, your hunger to be witnessed was not invented by you alone. It was shaped, rewarded, and monetized. But once you see it, the excuse expires. If you keep performing your process after understanding the mechanism, you are not being transparent. You are leaking strategic information. Machiavelli understood concealment as structural leverage. The ruler who reveals every intention teaches the court where to apply pressure. The ruler who moves beneath the surface forces everyone else to guess. Sun Tzu gave the same law its military form. When you are near, make them believe you are far. When you are active, make them believe you are still. Strategy is not only movement, it is controlled visibility. Hannibal did not create psychological advantage by asking the crowd to approve his route. He crossed the Alps because the movement was unthinkable until it was already real. Caesar did not build power by narrating every step to the room. He understood timing, information, and appearance. In strategy, the movement nobody fully sees often becomes the movement nobody can properly interrupt. Your life follows the same law. When you announce too early, people attach themselves to the process. They question your pace. They minimize your early progress. They drag you into explanation. They make you defend a version of yourself that is still under construction. And because the structure is still young, their noise can enter. That is why you build beneath the surface. Not because you fear judgment, because early architecture needs controlled conditions. A seed does not argue with the surface. It roots in the dark. A foundation does not ask pedestrians to admire it. It holds weight before anyone praises the building. Serious work often begins in a place where nobody claps, nobody understands, and nobody has enough information to interfere. That is not loneliness. That is sovereignty. The man who needs constant proof that others see his work is still being governed by external eyes. He is not building from command. He is building from hunger for confirmation. And that hunger makes him available. Available to praise, available to doubt, available to comparison, available to old people with old expectations, available to every small signal that tells him whether he should continue. That is not focus. That is a public nervous system. The correction is the dark build protocol. Choose one mission that compounds. Not 10 identities, not 20 directions. One mission deep enough to reward repetition. Remove public narration. Stop explaining the phase. Stop announcing the comeback. Stop feeding updates to people who have not earned access to the structure. Set private command hours. Same time, same place, same standard. No audience, no performance, no emotional bargaining. Track execution without applause. Use the notebook. Use the calendar. Use the completed repetition. Let evidence replace attention, then reappear only through undeniable proof. A stronger body, a cleaner mind, a sharper skill, a better position. A life changed so clearly that explanation becomes unnecessary. This is how a man becomes uninterruptible, not by becoming louder, by becoming harder to locate while the work is still vulnerable, harder to bait, harder to read, harder to slow down, harder to pull back into the old room. Some people will call it isolation because they do not understand private construction. Let them. Some will say, you changed because they lost access to the unfinished version. Let them. Some will act confused when you stop narrating your process. Let them stay confused. Your job is not to be understood during construction. Your job is to build. This is the declaration point. Drop a comment right now and type the words, I build where no one can interrupt me, not for approval, for commitment. Because the man who can build without witnesses is the man who eventually produces evidence that needs no permission. But privacy only creates power if you can survive the next enemy, the one that ruins most men after the excitement fades. Boredom. The real test of focus is not intensity. Intensity is easy when you are angry, easy when someone doubts you, easy when you feel embarrassed, easy when the wound is fresh and your ego needs proof. Any man can become disciplined for 3 days when pride is injured. That is not dangerous focus. That is emotional fuel. Dangerous focus begins after the emotion fades, after the comeback fantasy gets boring, after nobody is watching, after the first week feels ordinary, after the work stops feeling cinematic and starts feeling repetitive. That is where most men disappear from their own mission. Not because the mission was wrong, because the mission stopped entertaining them. This was not entirely your fault. You were trained inside a culture of immediate reward. Every platform shortens your patience. Every feed refreshes. Every app gives a signal. Every purchase arrives fast. Every piece of entertainment is designed to remove waiting from your nervous system. You were conditioned to expect stimulation before depth. So when real work becomes slow, your mind starts interpreting slowness as failure. When results do not arrive quickly, you begin looking for a new method, a new system, a new identity, a new promise that feels sharper than the old one. The system taught you to confuse novelty with progress. But once you see that programming, impatience becomes your responsibility. Because the long game does not care how stimulated you feel. It only cares what you repeat. Most men never lose because they lack access to information. They lose because they cannot remain loyal to one direction long enough for the compound effect to reveal itself. They start the workout plan, then they change it. They start the business model, then they question it. They start the skill, then they compare themselves to someone 10 years ahead. They start becoming a different man. Then boredom arrives, and they treat boredom like evidence that something is wrong. But boredom is not evidence that the path is wrong. Boredom is often evidence that the path is finally becoming real. Machiavelli studied men who rose quickly, and vanished quickly. Men who moved with heat, but without structure. The ones who lasted were not always the loudest or the fastest. They were the ones who could hold position when the room demanded reaction. Patience was not passivity. It was controlled pressure over time. Leverage, with a longer clock. Marcus Aurelius governed under pressure most men cannot imagine, yet his private writings kept returning to the same internal command. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, not for one inspiring morning, not for one clean week. Daily, quietly, repeatedly, Rome was not held together by speeches alone. It was held together by roads, routines, discipline, records, command structures, and men who understood that power decays when repetition is abandoned. That is the part the average man refuses to respect. Repetition. He wants transformation without repetition, status without repetition, a stronger body without repeated discomfort, wealth without repeated restraint, skill without repeated embarrassment, presence without repeated self-command. He wants the result without submitting to the physics that produce the result. And physics does not negotiate. A man becomes what he repeatedly obeys. If he repeatedly obeys comfort, he becomes soft. If he repeatedly obeys distraction, he becomes scattered. If he repeatedly obeys emotional impulse, he becomes easy to move. If he repeatedly obeys the blueprint, even when bored, he becomes structurally dangerous. The long game exposes a man's true religion, not what he claims to value, what he returns to when nothing feels exciting. Does he return to the mission, or does he return to stimulation? Does he return to the standard, or does he return to the old escape? Does he return to the command room, or does he give the throne back to mood? That is the test. The correction is the boredom test. A mission is real only after it survives three conditions: no applause, no immediate reward, no emotional high. If you can only work when people notice, you are not committed, you are performing. If you can only continue when results are visible, you are not disciplined, you are bargaining. If you can only move when you feel inspired, you are not focused, you are rented by mood. The focused man learns to respect unglamorous repetition because he understands what repetition is building beneath the surface. Every clean hour is a vote for identity. Every completed repetition is a brick in the architecture. Every delayed pleasure is a recalibration of desire. Every private standard kept is a deposit into self-trust. Eventually, he no longer needs to feel powerful to act powerfully. That is, when he becomes difficult to stop. Not because he is always motivated, because his structure no longer requires motivation. Most men remain average because they keep resetting at the edge of boredom. They mistake the slow middle for a dead end. They abandon the structure right before the structure starts producing leverage. Stay with the blueprint after the emotional music stops. Stay with the repetition after the audience leaves. Stay with the standard after the first results feel too small to display. The long game belongs to the man who can keep building after the work becomes ordinary. Because ordinary work, repeated with sovereign discipline, becomes extraordinary distance. And when enough time passes, the men who needed excitement will wonder how you moved so far. The answer will be simple. You stayed, but staying is only the beginning. The final question is colder. Once you have closed every gate, who do you become? This is where the architecture closes. Dangerous focus is not about looking intense. It is not clenching your jaw, waking up angry, or performing discipline for people who do not understand the cost of becoming uncommon. It is colder than that. Text. Dangerous focus is the architecture of a man who can no longer be easily redirected. Noise does not own him. Disrespect does not enter him without permission. Comfort does not make decisions for him. Approval does not purchase his movement. His circle does not lower his ceiling. Boredom does not make him abandon the blueprint. He has closed the gates, and once the gates are closed, the mission can finally speak without being interrupted. This was never just about productivity. Productivity is too small a word. This is about authority. The authority to decide what enters your mind, What shapes your standards, what receives your energy, and what gets denied access to your future. You were trained to be reachable, trained to react, trained to explain, trained to seek witnesses before the work was finished, trained to confuse stimulation with direction and visibility with progress. That programming may explain your past. It does not excuse your future. Machiavelli did not write for men who wanted comfort. He wrote for men willing to look at power without decoration. His world was full of rulers who had armies, titles, bloodlines, and public respect, yet still collapsed because they could not govern access, counsel, appetite, and timing. Power was never only what a man possessed. It was what he could protect from interference. That is the final lesson. The first power a man must reclaim is not over other people. It is over the mechanisms that keep him available, predictable, and easy to move. Because the world does not need to conquer a distracted man. It only needs to keep him available, available to noise, available to comfort, available to approval, available to every small impulse beneath his mission. So, begin with one gate, not 10. 1. Remove one access point today. Protect one command hour. Delay one pleasure. Refuse one unnecessary explanation. Stop one public performance. Reduce access for one person who keeps lowering your standard. Complete one repetition after the emotion is gone. That is how sovereignty returns. Not through fantasy, through structure. If this video made you see the mechanism, like it. If you want power explained without illusion, subscribe to Leverage Doctrine. But do not leave this as content you consumed. Turn it into private law. Your attention is not public property. Your mind is not an open room. Your future is not available to everything trying to enter it. Become unavailable to everything beneath your mission. Then keep building until the world has to adjust to the man you became in silence.